Hello everybody, so here is Black Angel again, and I'm here to talk to you about INTPs. Who are INTPs? First thing to say is that INTPs are TI dominants. Like we said for ISTPs, and this is something that they have in common, they are very attached to their understanding of things, to their logic, to the way of seeing the world. But when it comes to ISTP, we've seen that they have a very specific view of reality, of the world in front of them, that's connected to extroverted sensing. Whereas when it comes to INTPs, it's more about having a very specific classification and idea of what the world should be and their potential that the world could reach. That's because of the connection with extroverted intuition in the second position. So let's talk about introverted thinking another little bit. If you think that INTPs are going to be the guy that you go to and is going to listen to you about your ideas, your opinions, your thoughts, your this, your that, you're off base completely. The INTP is the kind of person that is not going to listen to you in that sense. They are, like I said, very attached to their own understanding. So if you share their idea, if you share their point of view, they're going to listen to you and share what you're talking about and talk to you about the matter. If you do not share their point of view, if you have your point of view and such, they're going to probably respect that, but they're not going to take that into account. So that's another trait of INTPs. The only thing that the INTP takes into account as a different opinion is when they find themselves by themselves and they are closed in their little room and they start thinking of their opinion versus society's opinion. That is something ISTPs do that too. It's a peculiarity of TI dominance. TI dominants are very conservative about their classification, their idea, their system, the internal system that they have of the world. Now, since we're talking about INTPs, one thing that I can say about them is that they really have these weird structures in their heads. And these structures are extremely fixed and difficult to change. So for an INTP, it's going to be easier to understand pretty much anything, but it's going to be very difficult to accept it as a possibility. So if they see that something is true and it doesn't fit in their model of reality, they're going to have to take time to readapt their entire model of reality to whatever it is that they're heading. You can find something similar in the first stages of Piaget theory about the cognitive development of children. There is a phase in which children are learning about the world and they're creating their internal model of the world according to him, who again is a TI dominant. And in this phase, it is difficult for children to change their idea of reality. So that's pretty much the same thing. An INTP can figure out that their ideal of the world is not correct. Not that it doesn't match reality, but it's not correct from a justice point of view, for example, that it is unjust or unfair in some way. So if they notice that because they see something and they figure out that that thing would be better, they're not going to change their mind overnight. They're going to need to take time to re-elaborate on their conception and rebuild their whole system of beliefs. Because again, TI is your system of belief versus T, that instead is the system of belief shared by the community. On a broader spectrum, the entire world actually, or mainstream mentality that goes across nations and borders. That's what T represents. So for example, you can have the beliefs of the whole Islamic community versus the beliefs of the whole Western community or Christian community, however you want to call it. So that's what I'm talking about. Whereas introverted thinking is my personal views and my personal system of beliefs. So these guys are very strong and very conservative in matters of their system of beliefs. What is extroverted intuition in the second position? Extroverted intuition in the second position means that the person has a specific view and a specific idea of what the world should be like. These guys are called in socionics Robespierre, and that's because they would gladly guillotine everyone that doesn't fit in their model of society, in their idea of how society should be. So they're the kind of person that would gladly use a guillotine to get rid of all of those individuals that do not enter in their idea of society. They are pretty idealistic individuals in this sense. Extroverted intuition makes them build an idea or a concept of what society should be. They're very democratic anyway, individuals. They do not believe in one person above the other. And even in matters of love, in relationship matters, in the case that they fall in love, they are going to be for equal relationships where all people are, well, where both individuals, or anyway, well, where everybody involved is treated equally. Nobody's treated better than the other. So this is pretty much extroverted intuition in the auxiliary position. I particularly like the description that Grigory Rainin does of this function. It's not particularly detailed, but it's very well explained and very well described. So yeah, this is pretty much extroverted intuition in the second position. Extroverted feeling in the inferior position. Now we are talking about someone that needs to be like even more than INTPs do. They actually need to find a place in an environment where they are well accepted. And they tend to be extremely insecure in this area, so they tend to follow the indications that they receive externally. So if they stumble in an ESFJ that has a very positive view of people and tends to see the positive in everything, then they're going to be relaxed in an environment. If they stumble into an ENFJ, for example, who instead tend to have a very negative view of society and of people, it is possible that the INTP is going to be so unlucky that they're going to feel excluded and that they feel they don't fit in anywhere. They don't belong in that place, and they're going to feel extreme hostility against them, even if the hostility is not real. That's something that people usually take advantage of when it comes to INTPs. Why? Because they're extremely intelligent individuals from a very academic point of view, and their insights are particularly useful and interesting, even for types that are not TI inferior. So they tend to be seeked for their understanding of things, for their way to explain things, for the clarity in their system of thoughts, and the way that they have to explain to others, so whatever it is that they stumble into. They are obviously scientists, analysts. They analyze pretty much anything they stumble into. They can understand quantum mechanics just like they can understand Baudelaire or literature. They are this kind of people, and that's what makes them useful in society. So what else do we have? Introverted sensing in the third position, tertiary position. Introverted sensing in the third position means that health is their knot of self-esteem. So they need support to an extent in health matters. They need in some way to be supported and accompanied by the hand when it comes to health matters. But not completely. If the ENTP and the ENFP need someone to actually take care of them physically, The INTP and the INFP only need a little bit of direction, like they need to be told how to do it so that they can do it themselves. So this is their knot of self-esteem. They tend to be pretty forgetful in matters of personal hygiene and such things, and they need to be reminded. One big difference that jumps to mind, if the ENTP would need the ISFJ to take him in the bath and wash his back and help him wash himself and so on, not because he's an idiot, but because he just cannot focus on that kind of stuff. The INTP instead only needs to be reminded, take a shower. Or click your nails, like DJ Randy used to say. That's something that I agree about INTPs, and that's actually extremely funny. Anyway, yeah, they need to be reminded to take a shower and clip their nails. That's pretty much how it works for them. These two types, both ENTPs and INTPs, are basically geniuses that forget about their physical well-being in a different way. One only needs to be reminded, the other literally needs to be taken and be helped in that sense. But they're both that kind of person. So yeah. Enneagram types that could go with INTP. I'm always a little bit indecisive with these types because they are very childlike, and I cannot really figure out a child that grows up or something. So when I think about the enneagrams, I normally think of how the enneagram develops. So going from an underdeveloped enneagram to a developed enneagram, and how the type could go from underdeveloped to developed. And when it comes to INTPs and ENTPs, for some reason I fail at that. But anyway, I would say probably Enneagram 6, because they tend to be a little bit pessimistic in some things, even if they are very bright and very, very colorful individuals. So they're childlike types, so they tend to be very jolly and funny. One INTP that I spotted is Bill Nye, for example. But I would say Enneagram 6 is a possibility, because they do have that intrinsic negativity inside of them, hidden there somewhere there. It's not very blatant, it's not very obvious, but it is there. What else? Enneagram 4 maybe, and Enneagram 2, because they have a deep extreme love to feel, a deep extreme need, to feel loved. They really, really, really deeply need to feel loved and to feel accepted, to be part of something, to be part of a family in some way. One thing that is said about extrovert feeling the inferior position is that when they find someone that accepts them and seems to show appreciation of them, they look to the INTP and the ISCP as the operation of Jesus to the people. So that's how deeply they need to feel accepted. So Enneagram 2 most definitely works in that sense, because of how the Enneagram 2 develops. The Enneagram 2 fears not to be loved. And it develops by understanding that they can be loved and loving unconditionally. That's something that the INTP is most definitely capable of. It's an extrovert enneagram, so it's very rare applied to an introverted type, but it can happen. What else? With whom do INTPs get along? Well, pretty much with the universe and black matter. That's the types with whom they best get along. But that's only because they're constantly stuck in their head and thinking about things and how things work and understanding something, reading and stuff. But in general, they anyway get along with ENTPs, ISFJs, and ESFJs. ESFJs are their duals, so they need this kind of Mary Poppins type next to them that makes them feel accepted and loved, and helps them to remember that they need to take care of themselves, and maybe takes them to play paintball in the paintball field. That's something that I can see the ESFJ doing. Anyway, yeah, this would be INTPs and with whom INTPs get along, pretty much all those types. They have issues with extrovert sensing dominance. So ESTPs and ESFPs are not an INTP's Beatrices. They're probably going to be the first being beheaded or something. But one thing that I must say is that the INTP is one of those types that tries to see everybody positively. They always try to find positive in everyone, and they always try to see the positivity in every individual. That's why I mentioned Enneagram 4 as a possibility. So beauty in everything. They try to do that even with types that they do not understand. It's basically their trick to leave. Their understanding. Their core is understanding. So they try to understand also people that are very different from them and that are very distant from them. That's what an INTP does. I think I will close this here because I don't have much to add to this type, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.